Hi, my name is Carlos Llamas. I grew up in the little town of Antonito, Colorado. I also spent some time in my second home of Gallup, New Mexico, in the Navajo Nation. And I work as a railroad engineer on the Crumas and Toltec Snake Railroad. And I am based in Antonito, Colorado. Your primary goal is to run a train safely from point A to point B and deliver your passengers from point A to point B and keep them as happy as possible. Safety is a primary concern, but since we're running steam engines, then we turn around and we have to add the historical aspect into it. And we're dealing with engines that could be well over 100 years old. So then, on top of being safe and keeping the passengers happy, we also have to maintain a very vintage antique machine. So you have a two-man crew, one that's operating the train and one that maintains the boiler of the locomotive, which is actually your power, and which is you don't have that in modern day railroads. The fireman has been made obsolete, so it's an old title, it's an old position. It's I would say it's a craftsman, and it's something that's being lost very quickly. A very well trained locomotive fireman that knows how to burn coal accurately and correctly is a lost, dying art. I have been qualified to run mainline freight, so I could consider I carry a G Corps certification, which is a nationwide rules examination. Then we'll also carry licenses that say we're qualified to handle a steam engine, and these are FRA required qualifications of Federal Railroad Administration. Then from there, we just go through years of training, both in metallurgy of the locomotive and how the metal reacts under different temperatures. We deal with the chemical composition of the fuels. And then on top of all that, there is a whole line of historical education. You know, you don't realize, I think all too often today, we're too quick to dispel the history of our nation and we forget the old parts of our nation, but it's the basis of how these machines were operated 100 years ago and how they were built and maintained that helps us maintain them today. So, education and training and reading lots of books. We find books in yard sales, in old grocery stores, and old yard sales, and these are the most valuable things we can have are these old books because they teach us the old ways that are quickly being lost. Where I'm based in Antonito, Colorado, and we travel to Chama, New Mexico, which is 64 miles by track and about 41 miles as the crow flies. But the other part of the railroad is basically south and west of us. Honestly, it was kind of a fluke. It was a summer job, and it was a program with the state of Colorado where the state paid for half of your salary and the railroad paid the other half. And after a certain amount of time, if they wanted to keep you, they could, you know, and became that. And I remember my grandfather, who was a railroader, came with me, and very quickly I learned the importance of tradition. When I finally realized that I was a fourth generation railroader in my family, we have 150 years of service, and with the Denver and Rio Grande, and then I realized I had three generations of family in the Santa Fe Railroad. So I realized all this tremendous history and tradition behind it. And I realized how important that was to maintain. I started at 17. I graduated out of high school at 17 and started at 17. My first job was a night watchman, and then from there I moved into the brakeman position. I skipped the conductor position and went into the fireman position in the locomotive, and I think I went into the locomotive at about the age of 19, 20. We were actually short on crews, so I started getting trained over on the engineer side, and I qualified as an engineer at 21. And then a few years later, I had an opportunity to leave, and I went and ran um, large steam locomotives on larger railroads. Got some experience in running freight trains with modern day locomotives. Actually, was asked to help test some modern locomotives on steep mountain grades, which is one aspect of our railroad. Is we have some really extreme mountain grades, and it's a whole different type of railroading. And then I had the opportunity to work for the New Mexico Railrunner, which is a commuter service, and I got some experience running passenger trains at 80 plus miles an hour. Took all that experience and training, and then came back because I think here was where I was better needed. I have 34 years on steam, with a quarter of a million miles of steam experience, which is in the old days would have been normal, but in modern days it's pretty extreme, pretty rare. I was lucky to go to a small high school. I think my class was the biggest class in years, and we were 44 students, which is really unique situation because you can't separate into groups because there's just not enough of you. So everybody gets along really well. And I didn't realize at the time, but I had one or two teachers that made a big impact on my life, and one of them was a Mr. Sandoval. Um, at the time, I think he was boring me, but I didn't realize that he put this spark of history into me, and he just taught me to learn more about why things happened in the past and how they shaped what happened today and how they will shape the future. Take the time to find where your family came from, what country they came from, what community they came from. Learn their stories because everything they did in the past was building a foundation for you and your future.